Okay, welcome to today's lesson. Today's lesson is going to be about make phrasal verbs. I'm writing a book at the moment about phrasal verbs, and I hope that by the time I put this video up, I'll be able to release the book. And you'll have two different methods that you can obtain the book, two different methods to obtain the book. You can use Amazon if you prefer, or you can sign up to this channel and subscribe to the channel. And if you stay with the channel a number of months, I think it's going to be 6 months, I'll send you the ebook for phrasal verbs. The ebook's going to be hundreds of pages long. It's going to have a lot of drawings and illustrations to help you understand these phrasal verbs. So it should be a whole course, and it will accompany all of these videos that I've made. So you'll have a lot of material there if you want to learn phrasal verbs by heart. And I guarantee that I will make the course extensive and thorough. And what I mean is I'll try to include every phrasal verb that I have ever come across. So without further ado, make phrasal verbs. So if you make over something or someone, or a place even, you could even make over a flat, it means that you're doing the flat up. Yeah, to use a do phrasal verb, you're renovating the flat, you're creating a new look. But I have to say that this phrasal verb is most often a noun, a makeover. And if you talk about a makeover, it's usually a person who has had some kind of new look. Somebody has created a new look for the person, maybe a new hairstyle, maybe new clothes. And so that would be a makeover. And you'll see that word more often as a noun than as a verb, I guarantee it. Now, all of these ones are about running. If you make for somewhere, you run towards that place. If you make towards somewhere, you run towards that place. It's the same as, or very similar to, run up to or run over to. You should remember all of these up to and over to phrasal verbs. Walk over to, run over to, dash over to, shoot over to. There are millions of them where you can get a verb, add up to or over to, and it means approach in some kind of way. Now, if you make off with something, it's the same as run off with something. So again, it's a running phrasal verb, make. It's very often about running. So you might say the thieves made off with £1 million in cash. Yeah, they ran off with, after they held up the bank, they ran off with £1 million in cash. They made off with £1 million. Or we could say they made away with £1 million, and that would be the same. And so there's not much difference between these two. They made away with £1 million, they ran away with £1 million after they held up the bank. And make after is the same as run after, which means chase. So if you say the policemen made after the robbers and were bearing down on them, something like that, it means they were chasing the robbers. They were chasing the people that held up the bank. Okay, if you make up, and if you do want an object, by the way, you can have an object. You can just say make up with someone. He made up with his wife, or he made up with his friend. But quite often it is without an object, and you just say they had a disagreement. They had, oh, I've got the same one up here. They had a disagreement. They fell out with each other, and then they made up. Yeah, so this one and this one are the same. I should make that clear. Then they made up, and it means they reconciled. They became friends again. So after you have an argument, if you make up, it means you become friends again. You understand each other's position, and you stop disliking each other. So you reconcile. Make up with someone is the opposite of fall out with someone. So there's another good phrasal verb as well. If you make something up, for example, the journalist made the story up, it means he lied about the story. He invented it to maybe to sell some more newspapers or to make a name for himself, something like that. Now, if something is made up of something, it means it consists of something. So you might say the class is made up of kids between the ages of 12 and 14, something like that. Or the class is made up of upper intermediate learners. Yeah, you can use it like that. And you can also make up a list, which means draw up a list, which just means create a list. That's all. It means create a list. And I think when you draw something up or make something up, it often sounds like a rough draft. It does sound like a rough draft, a first version. Now, if you make someone into something, for example, the newspapers made made him into a hero. It means that they made him look like a hero. They turned him into a hero. Very similar to turn into something. I suppose you could say the witch turned the prince into a frog, or you could say the witch made the prince into a frog. But I think we'd normally say turn into there. But I think we normally say turn into for physical things and make someone into something. A hero is not physical, really. You know, you're kind of speaking more, well, you're not talking about physical changes from a frog into a prince or a prince into a frog. You're talking about making someone into a hero. So I hope you can see that that's a little bit different from turning someone physically from one form into another. Okay, if you make do with something, it means you get by with something, and what I mean is that you manage to deal with a situation by using what is available. So you might say, I don't know, I didn't have a jumper at the time and I was cold, so I made do with a small rag that I put around my shoulders and made into a blanket. Yeah, I made into a blanket. I made the rag into a blanket. I made do with a blanket instead of a jumper. I had to make do with a blanket. So it's when you use what is available, and it's often not ideal. Okay, if you make it up to someone and make up for something, there are two here and they're very much related because they both mean compensate. But this means compensate for something. So make up for breaking the vase, make up for being late, make up for not turning up, whatever it is. Maybe you missed a meeting with your friends, so you try to make up for not turning up by doing something. And so this is the second one, make it up to someone by. This is when you say who you're going to compensate. So I made it up to my friend by buying him a drink, or I don't know, buying him a meal, whatever it is. But you compensate someone by doing something, and you compensate for your crime, your sin, your mistake. So you compensate for something. Now, make out has a number of different meanings. It could mean assert. He made someone out to be. So he claimed that someone was like this. So you might say he made me out to be a hero. He made me into a hero. And that would be very similar to make someone into, make someone out to be. It means you claim that someone is like this. Very often when they're not, by the way. So if you say the newspaper's made me out to be a hero, it means that you're not a hero, but the newspaper's made you seem like that. So it's an assertion, but it's a dubious assertion, a doubtful assertion. Dubiously assert. I ought to put that in, dubiously assert, where it's probably not the case when you say, I don't know, the Prime Minister made the doctor out to be a monster. It means that it's a dubious claim. It's probably not true. Okay, if you make out that, you pretend that. And I mean pretend like make-believe. A number of students use this word in the old-fashioned sense, and I think it's because in their language it still has that meaning, where we used to use pretend meaning want to be or would like to be, like he pretended to the position of king. It means he wanted to become king. Well, I don't mean that meaning of pretend, which nobody really uses anymore. I mean pretend when you pretend to be a policeman. And you dress up as a policeman, you speak like a policeman. So when you pretend, you're doing something dishonest, you're lying. And make out that you're lying in some kind of way. So there is a connection here to make something up, lie or invent. But you make out that something happened, you pretend that something happened. Now, make something out, it means perceive and comprehend. So if you say, I couldn't make out his handwriting, it means I couldn't understand his handwriting. It was so terrible that I couldn't perceive what it meant. I couldn't understand what it meant. And also, one last meaning, in the States, if you make out with someone, you kiss them with tongues. In England, we never used to say this, not when I was a kid. We would never say that. We would always say get off with. So it's another meaning of get off. Get off with it. When I was a kid, it meant kiss someone anyway, passionately. Okay, make of something. What do you make of the new Prime Minister? What do you make of what you read in the newspaper yesterday? It means what do you think of the new Prime Minister? It means what's your opinion? And it's very common, this one, make of. And I think it's very similar to when you say think of, which is opinion, but think about, which is plan, which is not similar to make of. Think about is plan and think of is opinion. Yeah, what do you think about going on holiday next year? It means what are your plans? But what do you think of my new shoes? What do you make of my new shoes? It means opinion. And I also want you to compare hear of and hear about. Because if somebody says, have you heard of Mozart? It's very different from have you heard about Mozart? Hear about, it means heard the news. Hear of, it means have you ever heard this name in your life? So I'm sure you've all heard of Mozart, but I don't suppose any of you have heard about Mozart because I don't suppose there's any news about Mozart in the in the news at the moment. So do compare hear of, hear about, think about, and think about make of as well, which is opinion. Okay, I think that's all for today because we've already done make up with someone and fall out with someone. So there your make phrasal verbs. There will be lots of exercises on this in my ebook, and there'll also be lots of exercises about these phrasal verbs in my TV show lessons, which are also going to be available if you join this channel. But I'm going to work on that. I'm going to make the channel available for subscriptions very soon. And if you subscribe every month, you will get a nice ebook with plenty of lessons, vocabulary, grammar, comprehension exercises for TV shows, so that you can study, revise, brush up on your phrasal verbs in the comfort of your own home, watching your favourite TV shows. Okay, that's all for today. Please subscribe, like, blah, 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 and I'll hope to see you all soon.